Hello and welcome to Basic ChIMP Electronics Part 1. So here we have the Adafruit BNO055 IMU, Inertial Measuring Unit. And you can see the little Adafruit symbol down there on the right bottom corner. That's going to be facing towards the rear on the ChIMP when we do actually install it, but more on that later. So we need to cut two header strips, one 4 pins long and one 6 pins long. They come with the Adafruit IMU. We're going to be installing these into the breadboard. So take the 6-pin chip and count over 1, 2, 3. We're going to try to install this as close to the center of the board as possible as well. So 3 sets of holes over from the center. Then the other one we're going to center between the 6 pins and 3 pins over as well. And when you do it like this, it makes a phenomenal helping hand or a rig to actually solder these together. So now we're going to go ahead and solder these. So we're going to heat up the old soldering iron and we'll clean the tip. This is bronze or brass wool that I'm cleaning it with. And we're going to just tin it slightly and then we'll be ready to go. If your eyes are starting to fail a little like mine are, you might want to be using magnifying glasses for this part. But it's really not that bad. So we're going to go ahead and with a little bit of solder on the tip, we're going to touch it against the pin and the pad and just quickly add a little bit of solder. We're not going to glob it on up, and you don't want to bridge them, whatever you do. And it's instantly much easier once you do the first pin. Nothing can move. And there you go. Now we have all the pins soldered, and we're ready to mount the Arduino into its custom 3D printed Arduino mount. This was printed on a FlashForge Adventurer 3, cost under $300 today. And you can see there's 6 pins. And the STL is available on the website. And if you can't print it yourself, we'll help you find somebody who can. So this is PLA plastic, and we're just using the soldering iron to melt down all the pins. And now the Arduino is permanently mounted in the ChIMP's mount. Next, the front of the ChIMP is forward, as I'm showing, and the little Adafruit symbol in the right corner right there needs to be facing aft or to the rear. So we're going to go ahead and peel the sticky stuff off, and as close as we can to being straight, we're going to install them on the Arduino mount. And it's pretty much just that simple. There you go. So now let's take a quick look at the actual breadboard. If you've never used one before, there are power strips along each side. All those little connections on the red side are connected. All the little connections on the blue side are connected all the way up and down, just like I'm showing. But in the center, the connections run sideways. There's 5 pins for each one of these. You can see they're all numbered. And each one of those connectors is connected. Those 5 pins are all connected together. So now with the IMU in place, we're going to be first hooking up the VN or VCC, depending on how yours is marked, and that's that'll be the 5-volt power that actually powers the IMU. And then we'll go back and we'll add the ground wire, and the connections are easily readable on the IMU itself. There you go. The black wire runs between the negative bus, the red wire runs between the positive bus, and now we're hooking jumper wire so that we can carry the electricity from either one of the bus assemblies. So the negative spans the whole board and goes over and plugs into the negative. The positive does the same. And now wherever we do hook up the power to, there will be power on all the pins from the blue and the red bus strips that run the lengths of the boards, because we're going to be powering other things off this breadboard. Now I'm installing the first wire, which is yellow, and that's in the far left pin of the Arduino, and that is that's going between what they call pin 21 on the Arduino, but they're unmarked on this side. The other side has 21 and 20, but these are 21 to the far left and 20 right next to it. And now we're going to use those jumpers to jump up and go into the the IMU itself. So the yellow wire connects to the SCL pin on the IMU. But Adafruit makes more than one version of this board. And this, I should say, makes more than one version of their BNO 055. And the connections aren't the same. They look close to the same, but they're not. So the yellow wire coming from pin 21 in the Arduino must go to SCL, and they're plainly marked on the IMU. And then the blue wire goes to SDA. Now, I have this cable that I made up, and it's used to power quite a few different things, actually, but it brings power from the O-drive board, because the O-drive board has a regulator that outputs 5 volts. And that 5 volts is we're going to use to power all the other electronics. So the O-drive gets its power from the main battery, but then has a regulated power output. And that's the black and the white wires that you'll see me hooking up later in part 2 of the electronics. And so I just put that black and white wire in. The black is the ground, the white is the positive. And now I'm using my cable to hook up the voltage in and ground of the Arduino. And they're marked on the Arduino for sure as 5 volts and ground, red being 5 volts and black being ground. We're also going to install the blue and gray wires into the Arduino, and they are for the UART connection to the O drive. UART is a form of serial communications that allows the Arduino to speak to the O drive. So now we have those 2 different sets of wires that will be feeding down to the O drive eventually. 1 to power everything, and 2 so that the Arduino can speak to the O drive. Now I'm using 3M command adhesive strips to mount this. And it's they're really simple. You just attach them, cut them to length, and the only important thing here is that I'm mounting them vertically. And that's because when the backpack is actually mounted to the ChIMP, it slightly warps the back of the backpack. And as a result, if we were to run the adhesive strips sideways, they don't adhere as well and they don't hold as well as if you just do 2 vertical stripes. And that's what I'm doing with the command adhesive. This stuff is pretty darn good, and it holds way more than we need here. I think this stuff is rated 16 pounds an inch or something like that. But anyway, I've just cut them so that they don't extend too far. The little strip at the bottom, the little rounded part, is so you can actually peel them easily. But right now we're just going to be installing this unit into the ChIMP. And there's your constructed ChIMP with backpack. We're just going to peel the adhesive guards away, and we'll be ready to install the ChIMP. Try to install it as low as possible. I might in this video not install it quite as low as possible, but I think it's important to install it as low as possible. And basically you push a couple times, and you can go back in a couple hours and push again if you want, but it's already there and it's permanent. And then in this headless ChIMP version, we actually feed the wires down through one of the little rubber plugs in the backpack, and they'll go down through a hole in the hip assembly. But in the advanced ChIMP, when you start using the head, we actually drill a hole into the box and into the spine of the ChIMP that you can't see unless you're looking inside the control box, the backpack. But for now, that's how that goes. Then we need to install the RC receiver. For the radio-controlled receiver, I drill a little, really tiny hole for that wire, which is the antenna for the RC receiver, and have a little piece mounted up there of the command and a little piece on the back of the RC receiver. And we're just going to snap that up into place. And there you go. Then there's a bunch of connections on the RC receiver. So the radio-controlled receiver has 3 sets of pins that run up and down it. There's the positive and negative for each servo connection, and then a signal for each servo connection. Well, all the positives and all the negatives are wired together. And so you only need to apply power to one of those pins. Now I'm going to go ahead. This is the enable, goes into 18 on the Arduino. The enable is from an auxiliary channel, like a button on your receiver or your transmitter. And then the 3 and 2 that you can see that I just installed will be for the steering and the throttle. More on that in the wiring diagram. Now, just because when you first set this up, you need to speak to this board with through USB to your PC. I'm actually installing a USB cable right now, and that's the printer type of cable that's going into the Arduino. And that's just going to hang on his shoulder. And that's the end of part 1. Look forward to seeing you in part 2.